Thank you. So at long last, let's move forward. So how does this concept come about? Essentially, there are three main pillars that I tend to stress out whenever thinking about this concept. One of them relies on smartphones, pompously known as ubiquitous location-aware devices. The other one on a global phenomenon, which is the global aestheticization that dominates people's lives throughout the planet nowadays. And one third phenomenon, which I use the Photoshop symbol for reasons I will explain further on, which is black box annotation. Now, these three pillars or axes, so to speak, they are not new. They have been discussed by a number of thinkers ever since the last decade of the previous century, in which computing has no longer an autonomous area of research, but is actually interweaved with reality, with our everyday lives. And these technologies are making their way into being transparent. We just use them as we use a limb, as we use our hands, and we tend to use everything in very much the same natural way. Now, in about the same time, which is again 1999, Ben Russell also published a very interesting document called as the HeadMap Manifesto, in which he already foresaw that computer games would be moving outside, sex and love would be easier to find thanks to all these devices, and traditional concepts will be challenged. So everything that we are experiencing nowadays was already seen way back then. And this was being made possible by the ability to annotate onto these invisible layers that I was talking about, to make annotations that would then enrich nature all around us and places all around us. Now, the global aestheticization, which is the second pillar, is discussed again by a number of thinkers, and it just crosses every area of our lives, from pets, cooking skills, fashion, holiday destinations, body modification, socialization, death, economics, politics, war, violence, torture, and famine. And this aestheticization process is being made possible by means of black boxes. Again, blackboxing, which is the third concept, was introduced by Latour, and he described it as the way scientific and technical work is being invisible by its own success. So we know that there is this black box, we put something into it, and we know that something will be coming out of it. And that's why I used the Photoshop icon a moment ago, because Photoshop is the ultimate black box. Everybody talks about Photoshopping images, but not many people know all the techniques needed to manipulate the bits and the pixels and in order to produce the manipulated images. So it's a very good example of black boxing. And so these three pillars contribute to what I call the Everywhere Museum of Everything. So essentially, what is it? It's a collection of global, interconnected, permanently updated, geolocated set of original and remixed content. So all the information that is being produced, which has an aesthetic component about it, it's part of the Everywhere Museum of Everything. It covers the entire planet's surface wherever you have internet access and Wi-Fi services. And its public is basically everybody who has a mobile phone and who goes on social media and who uploads, or at least looks at somebody else's feeds with aestheticized content. And so this is more or less how you can think of the Everywhere Museum of Everything, these different layers. Think of them as being an Instagram layer, a Twitter layer, anything layer that is hovering exactly where we are right now. Of course, artists are using augmented reality in order to render these layers visible. And for example, here you have an AR artwork by Matt Moore, which was sponsored by a known company, Rémi Martin. Sorry, I have a dog here. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have digital vandalism, which is an interesting artwork by Sebastian Errázuriz. He made of Jeff Koons' artwork, claiming also in a very artivistic way that corporations should not be entitled to occupy all the augmented reality space around us, and citizens should have the same rights to do whatever they please with these augmented reality artworks. But of course, those are examples of artists, and what happens with people? Well, take Instagram. Instagram is becoming the #1 network in the planet, especially with younger people. And museums are by no means immune to its importance. So what you have now is an interesting phenomenon where photography is encouraged rather than being prohibited, and where exhibitions are being produced in terms of their Instagrammability, their ability to capture audiences' interest in order to provide posts for Instagram. But of course, what happens from a research point of view is, take for example the Met Museum. If you look up the hashtag Met Museum on Instagram, and then you cross-reference with other hashtags, you can actually get a history of fashion, or the dogs of Instagram, or architecture, or art. So you could end up having a chronological history of whatever happens at Met Museum from the architectural point of view, the evolution of the building, or the different art exhibitions that take place, or whatever people are doing in its surroundings. So these are ways of looking at everything that is being produced, not as an end product, but as something that could give rise to knowledge, to other artworks eventually, and to new things. The same reasoning can be applied to the hashtag Met Museum in terms of Twitter, where of course you have more intricate stories, so to speak, sometimes videos, but again, the same sort of reasoning. And so think of this wealth of digital information as prima materia. And of course, you already have artists also using this prima materia. For example, Nicholas Felton has been producing what he calls the Feltron reports, yearly reports, in which he analyzes his own digital footprint and then produces his infographics. For example, the first one here is the time he spent with a friend of his, Olga, in New York City, where he analyzes the number of places, the time they spent at each place, how these places were connected, and so on and so forth. And so he produces something new out of the existing information that he has been uploading throughout the year. Now we come to another very hyped concept, which is the non-fungible tokens. But I prefer to stress out the fact that it's blockchain-based art. And so when you think of the assets and their categorization in terms of being physical, digital, fungible, and non-fungible, of course, we are dealing with a very small set of the digital family. So essentially just files. And these files could be video, music, images, what have you. But of course, the process of producing an NFT is reasonably simple. Essentially, you select the content, then you choose the platform on which you want to create your NFT, then you have to pay an initial value from your crypto wallet, and then you promote it on social media so that you can hope and pray that it will sell for a few $1 million. Now, this process, even though we think of blockchain as being something that is very robust and unbreakable, it has a loophole, which is the beginning, select content. And so, of course, it would only be expected that people are selecting content that it's not their own. And so there are lots of NFTs being produced nowadays by people who are not the original authors of the artwork they are trying to convert onto this format. And so it's still a very delicate area. It's obviously being very hyped because of the amount of money, but not exactly from the artistic interest or point of view. However, artists are doing some fun things with it. For example, Ben Grosser has produced a website called Tokenize This, which essentially consists of a web page that you load. The address is tokenizethis.link. And as soon as you enter that, you are faced with a potential NFT. But the problem is that if you try to copy the web link, then it destroys the content. And so the web link is only valid when it is displayed for the very first time, and then it disappears. So it's untokenizable, basically. But why is blockchain important? Why did I bring it here? Because it can be used as a curatorial tool. For example, the properties of the technology behind blockchain, the distributed ledger technology, they are quite adequate to producing exhibitions. First of all, they are programmable. You can program contracts into them. It is immutable. It won't change. Once you assume it's finished, it won't change. It is unanimous, meaning that all the network nodes will validate the properties. It is secure, it is distributed, and it is time-stamped. The fact that it is anonymous is not so relevant for exhibitions, but well, it could be an extra step. And so what do I propose that we can do? Take artwork, digital artwork A and exhibition E. So artwork A wants to participate in exhibition E. So participation is represented online as a block. The block is then broadcast throughout the network. The network approves the participation. And again, since it's blockchain, all the network must approve it. And the block is added to the existing blockchain. And so if you think of this blockchain as the exhibition, this is the way to add extra artworks to an exhibition. And so the participation process is complete. And if the network so decides, then this exhibition is closed, but it will be preserved forever and ever with all the artworks and every piece of information that was put into this, this particular concept. This represents a shift from what we now know as the modernist museum, either in a very centric approach or even a decentralized approach, but it's still a hierarchy, towards something that can be called the post-museum, where you have the distributed authority in terms of mutuality. All the participants are more or less on the same level of importance. The architecture that I proposed for the Everywhere Museum of Everything is a bit more complex, and now would not be the time to talk about it, especially because there were some previous publications. But still, very briefly, there are tools for visitors, tools for curators, and tools for researchers. And of course, all these tools can communicate among themselves, and all these tools can contribute to the central hub where all the services, the database service, the web services, and the blockchain services reside. And so this presentation is essentially a summary. There are some more informations that I would be glad to provide to you, in case you're interested. One of them was published last year on the Digital Creativity Journal, and also a book that I published in November last year about the same subject in Portuguese. So thank you very much for your attention, and that's it from me. Thank you.